doesn't bother me that much. But if I'm riding with my wife, or I'm riding with one of my kids, or for that matter my parents who are still in their 80s and are still riding, I'm a different person when I'm on a bike, and I'm with different people who behave differently. So bike boulevards are targeted at the population that is not currently riding. Certainly helps the people who are, but really benefits getting people out and changing the behavior of motorists and pedestrians and cyclists to make those streets more easily usable. They're branding not just in terms of what we call them, but also in how we show off our neighborhoods and create new ways for people to connect together between neighborhoods. And the idea is to not just create a single bicycle boulevard with this project, but to create a network and create a system. If you go back not that long ago, and I was just, Lindsay, Lindsay, where'd you go? Okay, Lindsay's acting engineer from our office is leading this project. We were talking about, if you come back to Rochester bike advocacy history not that long ago, and Steve and Bob and I go back longer than we want to admit, there was a time when the choices that engineers and designers had were don't put bike lanes in or put bike lanes in. That was pretty much the menu of choices that were out there. Bike boulevards came along after we'd finally realized that shared streets were okay in certain conditions for certain people, but just saying that everybody's out there going to be an effective cyclist, is going to share the road, which was a long-standing belief, and in fact in many places kept bike lanes from happening. That belief has changed because we've realized there are all these other people out there, some of us at different points in our lives or at different points of the day, or depending upon who we're with, who will bike differently if the infrastructure is designed and intentionally designed to accommodate that. Unfortunately, we can't put bike lanes in every street, which is what we tried to do probably for about 10 years or so, and realized we only got partial networks. The idea of bike boulevards came along when people started to combine urban design, traffic calming, slow speed streets, wayfinding and signage, and combinations of new types of bike facilities, including shared lane markings, better wayfinding, and linking these things together in ways that needed a new name, and they became known as bike boulevards. So some of the streets that you'll see in some of the examples have been incredibly successful. Went from having about 4,000 cars a day to having about 4,000 bikes a day, just by the kinds of changes in design that we're talking about. And we're really, again, you can see very clearly in this image just some simple wayfinding, symbols on the pavement, slow speed, high quality street, good street canopy of trees, minimal driving of cars, limited number of cars on it, and again, particularly that matchup of speed and people biking. And then once lots of people start to use it, that becomes the bicycle boulevard street. So not necessarily a very expensive infrastructure type. One of the great advantages of bike boulevards, very affordable if done well. So just to give you a sense of what that looks like, I'm going to give you a little bit of video here from our friends in Portland.
We're turning our bike boulevards into neighborhood greenways and working to create a citywide system that's great to live and play and get around by walking and biking.
Preparation for our 25-year master plan for biking, we did a lot of research and we did a lot of focus groups about what it would take to get from 8 to 25% of all trips by bike.
Things like turning 15 stop signs so that in one direction bicyclists continue to go through, right? Putting a couple diversions in so that motorists can't turn into a particular street, but cyclists can go across and go through. You know, these aren't huge things, but they really work. So when you think about those common characteristics and what makes these work well, again, we're not looking at really complicated stuff. You'll see the maps we have at the tables in a minute. There is no dedicated specific bicycle or vehicle delineation. The streets are shared. Generally no center line, no separating the space. At the same time, motor vehicle volumes are low, as are their speeds. So we're talking about speeds that are going to be in the school zone range of speed, right? Here in New York State, we let school zones be 15 miles an hour. It's about the only place we do. New York City now has a pilot of 20-mile-an-hour streets for the first time. Most of the rest of the state, our lowest speed limit is 25. The closer we can keep the speed of the bicyclists who are traveling and the motorists to each other, the more likely those two can actually share that space safely, right? But when motorists start traveling at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, not only is that not good for cycling, it's not good for your neighborhood, right? And you'll see neighborhood quality go down. So Rochester's had a great, in Monroe County, a really great traffic calming program. It's been very successful over the years. this is a chance to combine those things together. Logical, direct, and continuous routes that are well marked and signed. It's such a critical piece of knowing where you are, knowing how far it is to the next place, and what alignment you want to go to get there, where you need to turn, so that you're following this continuous green corridor across the city or across the neighborhood. Certainly knowing what the destinations are, and that's part of what we're going to work on tonight, and making sure that we're able to cross those busier streets, because we're not always going to be able to get that nice continuous desired line for bike travel to come to the places where streets are easy to cross right now. So we're going to have to deal with some complicated infrastructure at the intersections. So what's a bicycle boulevard in pictures? I just want to go through, leave you with a couple images on this section. I'll let Lindsay talk about the rest of the details.
She really wrote kind of messages. The media is just yeah, we didn't. Places to